and extensive sharing. I think one of the key insights that we all can gather from that is the need for a more critical attitude towards privacy. That sometimes we think of privacy as some sort of sanctuary, as a legitimate defense against the encroachments of the state, but without addressing more structural issues, kind of glorifying of privacy, is really a retreat where we end up being able to be ourselves only in the confines of very, very limited spaces. And we hide who we really are, so to speak, from the public, whereby split personalities happen, and instead of just there being private and public spaces, you have private and public moralities, and that just puts us deeper in neurosis. So thank you for highlighting that issue. We now move to this side of the table, and to FADIAH, who's going to share her thoughts on the issue. And I think one of the things that I personally look forward to is to hear more about the crossroads of different communities, refugee communities coming to the country, and their plight, which we sometimes don't hear about because they don't get enough coverage, but it's nonetheless very important. So let's welcome her.
Thank you. I think when we want to talk about this issue, the issue of marginalization, maybe I can share something from my experience, having worked with different communities and having practiced law for 8 years. Actually, refugee issue is one of the issues that got me interested in moving to Kuala Lumpur and be part of activist world. So yeah, because I got this realization when I was doing my pupillage in my hometown in Malaysia. A group of UNHCR officers came to my hometown to conduct a training. It's about refugee rights in Malaysia. Then at that time I was like, oh my God, these people exist and I don't even know about them. So I got this awareness at that age. I was 23 at that time, and I started to think about what the world is like. I mean, even in Malaysia, I don't even know that these people exist. They are part of our society. They've been here for so long, but many of us, we were not aware of their existence. What more they're like. And I think when we talk about the marginalized, we have to start thinking about the different groups of people who don't belong, who we think don't belong in our society. For example, when Malaysians talk about racism, we are pretty clear that, we cannot discriminate against the minorities, for example. I think everyone can agree with that. But when it comes to the blacks, when it comes to African communities in Malaysia, we kind of somehow forget about this whole notion of anti-racism, and we start calling them crows, gagak hitam. I mean, even media uses this kind of word to describe about these people. And also we call irregular migrants or undocumented migrants illegals until now. Even the government uses the word illegal migrants. The opposition uses the same term to refer to these people. And a good example would be Project I see in Sabah, and also the recent RCI conducted on Sabah issue with regard to undocumented migrants and how they're, they are manipulated and how they're exploited to vote for the elections and all that. So we can see anger and also hostility when it comes to people who we think don't belong, who we think. Basically we exclude them because they're not Malaysians. So when we talk about Malaysians, yeah, we're anti-racism and all that. But when it comes to refugees, we're like, oh no, we don't need them. We can't deal with them. We have so many problems in Malaysia. Even citizens have a lot of problems in Malaysia. We can't deal with them. That's our attitude. I think it's very important when we want to talk about this issue to examine our attitude and also to start looking beyond what's obvious. To start looking at those marginalized groups. So I worked with migrants before. I worked with refugees, and I started realizing that I think if there's hierarchy of oppression, I think they would be at the bottom. because of the migrants, of course, because we look at them as, oh, they're poor, they're here to steal our jobs. But our people, the locals, they refuse to do the jobs that the migrants do, right? Yeah, and without them, I don't think we can survive, because nobody wants to be doing what they're doing, to be paid so little, and sometimes, having to like live in a small flat with 2-3 families, and when there's raid, when there's operation by the immigration and the police, they have to like stay in the jungle for days, to avoid arrest and detention. And these people are the people that we call, they are here to steal our jobs. So it's a myth, actually. We need them. Without them, we can't really survive. We can't really, live a decent life, because who's going to do the jobs that, the locals refuse to do? So I think it's very, very important for us to start thinking about all these issues, because the society somehow, they're not, I'm not sure whether they're aware, or maybe they're just, I think they don't understand, because these people, their voices are not really heard. Media sometimes don't really cover what they say, and often when we talk about the marginalized, like for example activists, we always refer ourselves as the voice for the voiceless. So I think that is very wrong, because there's no such thing as the voiceless. These people have a voice. They have something to tell us. They have their own experiences. It's just that we don't give them the space to talk about their plight. And we can't be like, oh, I'm the hero, I'm an activist, and I'm going to speak for them. Never speak for the voiceless. Never speak for the marginalized. What we have to do, I think, what we have to examine is how we can amplify their voices. How can we, how we should give a space to them to talk about their plight. So I think that is our role as people who are concerned about what's going on in this country. So when we talk about migrants, when we talk about refugees, we often use all these words that I mentioned earlier, illegal migrants, for example. It shows how we use a term that criminalizes migration. Migration is such a norm. People move, around the world, people move, and with the conflict, the armed conflict, with poverty and all that, people are forced to move. It's not like they choose to move. They are forced to be in that situation. And we, on the other hand, use that to criminalize somehow. I don't know, maybe we just want to show that, as a citizen of this country, as a national of this country, that is some kind of supremacy too, I would say. Yeah, because, I have this legal relationship with this country, you don't, because you don't have documents, so I get to say all these things to you, and you should be put behind jail. So all this, how we describe these communities, the migrants and the refugees, it does not help in getting them out of their plight, and also does not help in addressing the issue. For example, recently I went to Sabah. I was, after having dinner, I was like just hanging out with my friend, and I saw a lot of children, they're like selling things, like selling fruits and all that. And I'm like, I don't see this in KL that much. Yes, of course, we know that a lot of refugee children, they work and all that, but it's not, but over there it's so obvious, it's so like right in your face. And I'm like, what's going on? And you know that there are a lot of stateless people in Sabah. But, they've been there since 1970s, these children are the third generation, and nothing is done. And then this boy came and he wanted to sell me fruits, and I was like, where do you live? I asked. And he said, oh, somewhere there. He just showed, like, oh, somewhere there. I was like, with whom? Like, my family. Where's your parents? They are working. And do you go to school? He said, no, I used to, but now no. And he's like, I think he's 7 or 8 years old. So a lot of them. And I'm like, this reminds me like countries like Cambodia, because I've been there and I've seen this. It's quite common there. And in Malaysia, I'm like, wow, this is the reality. And what are we doing about it? I don't think, with all the discourse about the recent ICI, about Project IC and all that, these people are getting more and more marginalized, because we feel like, they are here to take our jobs, They're here, they're not even citizens of this country, so why should we even talk about them? We have MPs, from Sabah saying that let's put them on a boat and just drown them. That's xenophobic and racist statements coming from MPs representing the voice of the Sabahans. That's what he claimed. On Twitter, I saw that, and he made that statement quite publicly, and he didn't even want to apologize when someone called him out for that. So, and of course, I understand that a lot of, this sentiment is not, it's shared by a lot of people, because I think we don't understand and how this whole thing is politicized, and how this whole thing has become such a big issue that makes us forget about the real plight or the problem that people are having. And also, I think, what can we do? The question when we talk about the marginalized groups, what can we do as citizens of this country to address this problem and also to help them get what they're entitled to? For example, the migrants and refugees, they have rights just because they don't have that legal relationship with this country, just because they're not citizens of this country. It does not mean that they don't have rights as human beings, to live a decent life here. So I think one thing that we can do is to stop using oppressive language, because oppressive language itself is oppression. For example, if you want to refer to marginalized groups, for example, the LGBT, we call them bampu, we call them bondan, right? And also like women, in Malaysia, we call them like meroyan, postnatal depression, betina. It's okay to call a man jantan, like anak jantan, hebat, you should be proud of anak jantan, but when it comes to women, betina, it's so degrading. And also, we still call the Africans and the blacks Negro in this country. Oh my God, it says a lot about us, I think, about our awareness as to the issue of racism. And I think we have to start, and also when you see people in power, when you see the opposition members, the MPs using all these oppressive words to describe the marginalized groups, we have to call them out and ask them to stop using this. And also media, both sides, the mainstream media and also sometimes even alternative media use these terms to describe migrants and refugees as illegal migrants, instead of using undocumented or irregular migrants. So this is something that we can do to start telling people how serious this issue is, and also to conscientize the masses as to the issue that we are facing in this country. And also when we want to talk about the marginalized, right, we have to stop speaking for them. We are not their voice. They have their own voice, and all that we need to do is to amplify theirs. We don't say that, oh, I'm the voice for the poor. No, we're not their voice, because we are not in their position. And for example, for me, I'm in the position of privilege. I can never understand what they go through. They can tell me their position, they can tell me their situation, but I can never feel exactly how they feel having to go through oppression on a daily basis. So what I need to do is just to amplify their voices when they relate to me their experiences. So that's what we should do as citizens of this country, as activists, in whatever capacity you are in. I think that's very, very important. I think maybe I can share with you a little bit with regard to this discussion about the voiceless. Arundhati Roy wrote something that's very beautiful. I think I hold on to this. Sometimes you just have to remind yourself, right? When you want to say something like, oh my God, don't speak for the oppressed. Listen first what they have to say. For example, recently about the issue of homelessness, people say that these people are lazy, they don't want to work, they just want free food. But when you go and talk to them, some of them work, but they just don't have the money to rent a room or a house. So they have to sleep, in the street. So when you talk to them, they want to work, they want to be someone, they want to be someone that can contribute to that country. They want to have that dignity, as a human being, who wants to live like that, if you ask me. But if you don't talk to them, you will buy all this myth about, oh, they're lazy, they don't want to work, they just want free food and all that. So I think it's very important to really go on the ground and see what's going on and talk to them, then amplify their voice. And yeah, Arundhati Roy said, sorry, she said, when I grow up, I want to be like her. She said, there's really no such thing as the voiceless. They are only deliberately silenced or preferably unheard. So in Malaysia case, I think it's quite obvious that some people refuse to hear what the marginalized want to say, and also they are deliberately silenced with, I think for example, with what's going on now in Parliament with the new amendments to the Sedition Act, with the passing of the anti-terror law, that's how they deliberately want to silence voices of the marginalized. And also, I mean, with regard to the society, I would say sometimes we refuse to listen to what the migrants have to say, what the refugees have to say, because we don't want to deal with it, because it's not something that's easy to deal with. Also, okay, in order to amplify the voices of the marginalized, I think what we need to do is to listen and also to understand. Most of the time you feel like, I want to say something, I just want to tweet it, I just want to put it on Facebook, I have opinions for everything. But we feel to sit down and take at least 5 minutes to understand, the situation and also, what they are going through. I think we have to start teaching ourselves to listen and to understand. And also we have to start recognizing differences in order to understand the different people who we exclude in our society. I think another quote that I would like to share from my favorite feminist poet, Audre Lorde, she said, "It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, celebrate those differences." I think that's very true. For example, for Muslims, just because I'm Sunni, so I don't want to recognize my brother who is a Shia, for example, because he's so different from me, I can't deal with it. But the moment you start recognizing that, yes, he's different, he's Shia, it's fine, then there won't be conflict, right? Because conflicts in the world, of course, when you want to talk about geopolitics and all that, but another factor to this is, how we cannot recognize, accept, and celebrate the differences that we start hating, and when we start hating, we start justifying violence, and that's how conflicts break out. And we can put a stop to it by recognizing, accepting, and celebrating those differences, and stop using the word "I'll tolerate." Let's tolerate each other. Tolerate is like, I hate you, but it's okay, I'm just going to pretend that I like you. No, we don't tolerate. Don't tolerate, accept. Because we can never be the same. If you're gay, fine. If you're Shia, fine. I'm fine, I love you. It's okay. We have to start doing that. It's very simple, but it's really hard to do. But I think what Audre Lorde said, makes a lot of sense, and it can solve a lot of problems. So we have to start thinking of that. Thank you.